everybody. Guess what I'm doing today? You don't know? You should know. You read the title, didn't you? If you didn't, then today we're going to be doing another comedy movie list. Yeah, I love comedy movies that much. I am sorry. I know you all probably don't like it, but I do. And this is my channel. You don't control it. Regardless, for all the comedy lists I've done, here's one thing I'm about doing today that kind of represents something. Animated movies. Now, I've made a list of favorite anime movies, but I haven't really fully shared it to the world yet. I'll be getting to that soon. But for today, I came up with this idea. Maybe animated comedies or something to talk about. Because for my other list, I never brought up any animated movie. I thought I could do that today. So today, what am I doing? We're going to be doing a top 10 list on my favorite animated comedies. Now, these are all animated movies. And these are all just original films. They're not sketch comedies or anything. And this list is going to be ranked off of which films I just seem to enjoy laughing to the most. And these are all only going to be movies that I enjoy mostly for comedy rather than the animation part. That said, y'all get the idea? I will say it one more time, just so you can understand. This is a list of my top 10 favorite anime comedies. All anime movies, no sketch comedies or anything. These are all movies I love mostly just because of the comedy rather than the animation. And this is ranked off of which ones I love laughing to the most. So let's get started. Before we start this list, here are two honorable mentions I should bring up. Shrek and Lego Batman movie. I bring these two up because these are two animated comedies most people probably know how much I enjoy. However, I enjoy these two movies mostly for another reason. For comedies are minor to me. There's other things that make these movies enjoyable to me, so you're not going to see them on this list, sadly. And just want to tell you that right now, so I won't have to. You won't have to be pissed I didn't have them here. So here you go. These are two movies I enjoy mostly for another reason, and the comedy is just a minor to them. Regardless, let's get to the actual top 10 list so you can understand. Let's get started. Come on. Ice Age. Now here's a nice little classic. Ice Age was the first ever movie the Blue Sky Studios, old animation studio, put together. Ice Age started it all, and most people would understand what Ice Age is about. Well, I do, but do I care? No, it's funny. That's what's going on. This movie's funny. It's a story about a bunch of animals who are literally taken alive of looking after some baby. And honestly, that alone just sounds funny. It's a funny little story. It's kind of like a animal version of Raising Arizona or something. And it's really interesting, you know? The comedy mostly comes from how these characters are, what they are doing, you know? They all just have their own certain wars. I mean, I have different opinions on most of them, but I still enjoy what each one's all going through. But I think the real comedy that this movie tries to create is with Scrat, the character. Scrat is a squirrel that apparently has its own screen time. Like, there are moments in the film where we see Scrat doing weird stuff to get his acorn. They have nothing to do with the story. They don't reflect on anything the story's telling us. They're just silly little skits that we get to sit through for a while. Ice Age is funny, and it also created this variety of sequels. But let's be honest, if none of us really care for the sequels, they're just bland. We focus on the original Ice Age at this time, and I think the original Ice Age deserves what it gets. Enchanted. Now, I know this is kind of cheating. I mean, Enchanted is mostly live action movie, and I know that kind of but honestly, in my opinion, Enchanted does still have animated elements in it. Like, there's still some animation in the movie, and honestly, since there's animation in it, and since animation is part of the genre, I guess I can say it counts. It should count. It still has animation. But the animation part kind of reflects on what the story is, at least in my opinion. What's the movie about? Well, it's kind of one of the funniest elements ever. Taking the classic Disney princess side characters and they get stuck into the real modern day world of New York City. That alone just sounds creative and funny, and it's kind of weird seeing Disney themselves do this. This is something another company would do. Like, we've seen princess spoofs, films like Princess Bride or Cinderella Story, But Enchanted was one that actually does spoof itself because it is itself. Like, take the original Snow White movie, take the character, see what happens if she got to interact with the 2000s New York City. Imagine what that'd be like. Despite the comedy working in this movie, and despite it all being funny and whatnot, I've had to admit there are still a lot of too many serious moments in this, and I honestly think there's too much in this movie that kind of is too serious when it shouldn't be. I mean, I understand what they're doing, but yeah, with all the funny moments, there's also the serious moments. I'm kind of surprised that Enchanted isn't on Disney Plus yet. That seems to be one of those films everyone's been wondering why it hasn't reached Disney Plus. I don't know if it's because this movie's been forgotten by Disney or whatnot, but I don't know. Enchanted deserves more hype. It's a good movie. It's definitely worth the watch if you haven't seen it yet. It's funny. It's interesting. It definitely is something Disney really took a chance at doing. Captain Underpants. Now, I know what you're thinking. Reading the title and just looking at this, you may think this is a horrible, horrible movie. But the thing is, it's kind of what you kind of need to actually understand more of it if you want to see it. Captain Underpants, a very weird name, is actually a book series. Yeah, there was this original book series that second graders and third graders read. It's a series that was apparently targeted for those kids who was like comedy books. Like me, I read these books a little bit in my third grade years, and they were funny. Yeah, they definitely had a weird plot. They were unnecessary for the teachers to watch, but for the kids who have to learn to whatnot, they could just read these books instead of dealing with all the Hunger Games and Harry Potter shit yet. Regardless, now that finally called DreamWorks made a movie about it. I feel like at the time this movie was made, people like me were already grown out of those books, so what was the point? I don't know. Anyway, what is Captain Underpants about? Well, it's pretty much a simple story. Some random principal turns into a superhero cat. It's a stupid story, but it's really meant for those who actually grew up with the books. If you did, then you'll understand this, and you'll actually find this funny. Like me, I grew up with the books, and since I did, I find this to be a very funny movie. It's weird most moments. Like, I kind of find it odd most of the time with the cast and crew, but regardless, I still enjoy what humor through does because it's the kind of humor I read through. The kind of humor that I can watch even though I'm not already grown out of the books. So yeah, I know it's kind of sad that they released this too late, but it's a real wonder what I would feel like if they released this while I was still in the middle of the series. Either way, this is probably one of those book series that teenagers nowadays just really try their hardest to ignore because they got that Lord of the Rings and Hobbit, whatnot. But still, when you were a third grader and you still needed an education, this series was for you. SpongeBob SquarePants movie. Well, most people would say, shouldn't I enjoy this movie mostly for another reason? No, actually. Yeah, believe it or not, this is actually a comedy part that I admire from this. The movie, of course, is based on the original television series. Now, I've talked about this before when you saw my list of favorite movies based on series. So, should I say more about it? I mean, it still kind of just is told where it's at. It's the simple story. SpongeBob and Patrick go to grow a crown, deal with serious stuff they haven't dealt with in the show before. It's an interesting idea. It has those emotional moments and all, but in my opinion, I think the comedy stands out the most. Because that's one real big reason I enjoy the show. Its sense of humor. The sense of humor the original series had really made me grow up with this series. I remember watching every single episode. At least up to 2017. After that, I kind of stopped binging for more. Regardless, the movie definitely reflects on what the series had to offer. So when you're a kid who loves SpongeBob, you definitely love this movie. You definitely love what humor threw at us. I still have to really wonder how the adults feel about this. I mean, me as an adult who grew up with SpongeBob should enjoy this. But for those adults who really weren't into SpongeBob when they grew up, would just see this as another kid scam that you have to pay money for no reason. I don't know. I still enjoy what this did. It was a really great movie. Funny in most moments, mostly because of the comedy doing what the show did. Funny stuff, really funny stuff. A Simpsons Movie. Here's another film that was based on a series. I didn't talk about this one made by list of favorite movies based on series. That's because at the time I made that list, I kind of didn't know much to say about the Simpsons movie, as I was thinking at the time it probably wasn't good enough for those other movies. But I look at it now and realize it kind of is, actually. I mean, the Simpsons movie really is a Simpsons movie. It's this time though, I think it's good because adults were able to sit through it more, as it is mainly an adult series. I mean, some kids watch it, but this is more for tweens to start watching. It's more like a series the tweens to grow up with. Adults still can enjoy it if they want, where they already got that Family Guy stuff, but The Simpsons definitely was a funny series, and the movie, well, pretty much can be funny as well. I love the comedy the Simpsons movie offers because, yeah, like again, it's just mostly comedy that we see from the show. And it does reflect on an actual story that we can admire. Oh, I hate when that happens. Anyway, the movie, yeah, I think if you are an adult, you could still find this funny. I don't know if you do find it funny as an adult, but if you do, still, I understand perfectly. It's perfect. But this does make me wonder. There should be more. Like, when we get a Family Guy movie soon, or a Bob's Burgers movie, or a, I don't know, Cleveland Show movie, whatever. All those shows or whatnot. There's lots of cartoons out there that I think haven't gotten their movies yet. But I don't know if many of them deserve their movies. I mean, as good as shows as they are, what can you make a movie out of with them? Some just can't be taken seriously, so what movie can you make from it? Well, Simpsons movie made a good movie, so I guess that's just gotta be something to keep in mind. Monsters, Inc. I was thinking about if this is mostly good of a comedy or mostly good from its plot. I mean, it's a Pixar film that focuses on monsters who scare children. I was first thinking this isn't really that impressive, mostly for the humor through us. It was mostly just for some of the creativity. But then I looked at it again and realized this really is the kind of comedy film Pixar put together. And so it is. Monsters, Inc. is the funniness of Pixar. A movie that pretty much, yeah, tells the story of how monsters scare kids in bed. But honestly, when you think of the story more, you realize it does have that great sense of humor in it. Because, there's that theory in the movie where kids scare monsters. It's a really creative, interesting film. But I think what we really enjoy is the casting they got for. They chose some really funny people to cast in this movie. Like John Goodman, they got John Goodman as Sully. They got Billy Crystal as Mike. They got Steve Buscemi as the villain. They got a really good cast crew for this film. And those cast members agreeing to this kind of does help with the humor this throws at us. I honestly shouldn't be still laughing at this, seeing I have my teen years. But hell, I looked at a trailer of this movie when you saw it on my list of movies turning 20, and I actually kind of chuckled. I was honestly having trouble not laughing. Luckily, I wasn't able to laugh, but this is funny stuff still. I'll admit, I still think the movie was funny enough. It's kind of like Pixar's way of comedy. It's the level of comedy Pixar has. So yeah, Pixar had its level scale. I'd say its number one comedy scale would be Monsters, Inc. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. Sony Pictures Animation. This is a studio that honestly may not have been as well succeed as we imagined. It started in 2006 with Open Season, a movie that got mixed reviews but still lived up alright. Then we got Surf's Up, which wasn't too bad. And now we got Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, which so far I guess would be the best of Sony Animation. Yeah, I'm honestly surprised that it was good. Why is it good? Because it's super funny. I mean, you may not know this, but this was actually an original novel that most people haven't really read much, but the original idea is kind of not really shown much from this movie, as this movie seems to focus on, food falling out of the sky, just curing world hunger like in the most craziest way possible. Honestly, all the stuff they throw at us, though, is hilarious. I just find how funny they try to make this idea. I mean, there's animation alone is funny. The jokes all make sense. Some of them can relate to what the story's doing. It's a really interesting idea, and I'll admit, for Sony Pictures Animation, this works really well. At the time, it was great. As Sony Animation tried to continue, they tried alright. I mean, they put out some stuff. They got the Smurfs, which was a disaster. Art for Christmas, which was definitely better. Hotel Transylvania, which was I mean, I guess fine in most ways. It was still working of the weight. They've been doing fun with those movies. They've been trying hard. They still haven't succeeded too well, but they were keeping it up. They were going well. But then things started to affect when Hotel Transylvania 2 came out and seemed to have mixed the reviews up a tad. Is that you think that's ridiculous? Well, wait till you see more. Because then they released stuff like the Emoji Movie, which were huge, huge disasters. Or then there was Hotel Transylvania 3, which in my opinion was horrible. But I think Sony Animation grew up a bit when they made Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. To this day, it is still Sony Animation's best work. I don't know why I'm talking about Sony Animation so much. I'm just saying, despite it not being a great animation company, when it puts out stuff like this, I think they can be funny and enjoyable. South Park, bigger, longer, and uncut. Speaking of which, we are now at the stage of more movies based on cartoons. Yeah, I didn't bring up South Park when I was talking about that during the Simpsons movie talk, but now that we're here we have South Park. Yeah, I talked about this before, you saw my video, but let's just say something right now. Let's say now that South Park, bigger, longer, and uncut feels like it should, because this is the movie that adults only can watch. Because I was talking about how adults have to sit through something that kids grew up with. Well, now this is something adults grew up with and are now willing to watch themselves. You can't get a kid to watch it. You really gotta watch out, because there are kids out there that try to watch this movie just so they can enjoy it. Because this is a movie that can suck kids' minds into thinking this will be the funniest crap ever, yet also the most inappropriate crap ever. So, kids everywhere were trying to sneak into watching this film, like me. I kept myself safe. I didn't really need to watch this too much, but I did finally check it out, and yeah, it's a really funny movie. It has that serious story you can look at, but the seriousness still can be hilarious. Because most of the new antagonists they throw at us, are also some of the new characters they throw at us, while have a serious approach, are still hilarious. This movie does a lot of mocking too. Some of it's mainly a spoof on the MPAA rating, since this was originally going to be rated NC-17, but they had to cut out about 2 swear words to make it R. It also spoofs, I say, many World War II over exaggerations you see in those movies. You know, like films like Apocalypse Now or Saving Private Ryan. It kind of does a little bit of that. It does a little spoofing on most of the stuff. It does what the original South Park series does. It spoofs characters, spoofs moments, and as the movie ended, the show still went on, and it has improved a lot. So yeah, South Park's a great show, and this certainly is a really hilarious movie. Despicable Me. Now here's the start of an animation company that, in my opinion, is very underrated. Illumination. Now most people seem to complain that Illumination is a very unnecessary cash grab of its movies. Well, in my opinion, while I can say that could be true, I enjoy this movie still a lot. And I still think this is a funny movie to begin, because the whole Illumination is like meant to be Universal's way of making hilarious animated comedies. And those movies were funny. Not all of them were interesting enough, but they were still funny. Most people complain that as the Minions made great comedy and Despicable Me, they just seemed to take over the company. And while I'll admit that is true, is that really a problem? I mean, they are hilarious. I mean, come on, you cannot tell me that they're not funny. They are, despite them not having a true language or much, and despite them doing too much with the studio. You cannot tell me they don't make you chuckle. They make me chuckle a lot. Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, even their own movie was funny. Can't get enough of this. But despite the Minions obviously being the funniest part of this franchise, the overall Despicable Me film is definitely a good watch. This movie actually does make me laugh, and actually is what it is said to be. I mean, they really very well. One thing I can admire from this is the animation it does. The animation in Despicable Me is kind of different than your average movie, as it's fast-paced and more stylish. And I'll admit, that's pretty creative, and it actually makes the movie even funnier to watch. Surprise, right? I mean, I actually think Despicable Me is funnier with its animation than usual. So yeah, everything about Despicable Me can be funny, and despite these Minions not impressing a lot of people, I honestly was impressed by it. It's a funny movie, and it does spawn a good franchise, as well as a nice, simple animation company. Criticize it all you want, call it a cash grab all you want, But I'm gonna let these minions be as funny as they can until their next movie. Hopefully, which makes it as funny. Ah, yes, my favorite animated comedy of all time is The Emperor's New Groove. Now, let me tell you why. This is not your average ordinary Disney movie. Because at the time of the release, Disney was mostly focusing on their animated films with what they were trying to approach, like what type of story they were approaching. They're all very serious and whatnot. The comedy that each animated Disney movie threw at us was mostly minor. They kind of just didn't reflect on much what the story was telling. They were just there to impress younger viewers. And you could argue that movies like Aladdin or Hercules went for a big, hilarious approach, but they still had a very serious moment that you really needed to take seriously. But then all changed when The Emperor's New Groove came out. Yes, this movie really is my favorite animated comedy because it is the funniest. Every moment this movie has at us is not what you would normally see because it's not serious. All right, let me just tell you the story right now and tell me, would you take this seriously? A prince turns into a llama. Yeah, you cannot tell me that is true. That is gonna be hilarious. It's not. It is really funny alone. Like of all the comedies we talked about, they were all kind of obvious to what how funny they were. But with this movie, you just wonder how funny Disney could get. And yeah, this definitely worked. And this hasn't spawned too much from Disney's comedy range, but it did spawn some stuff. Like I did talk about Enchanted. I guess this could have been the reason that movie was funny. Was it? I don't know. Regardless, I'm sure you all could agree with me. If not, then there you go. The Emperor's New Groove, in my opinion, is the funniest animated movie I've seen. That was so lame, wasn't it? Lame list. I'm running out of ideas. I'm sorry. I have a lot going on right now, you know? Regardless, I guess just be happy with what I upload next because I might hate it too. Bye.